Storing history for sleep, the Ottoman soap makers, who scented an empire asterisk, good evening, friend, settle into the hush of night. Dim your lights. Let the soft glow of your screen be the last thing you see. Pull your blanket up to your chin and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Tonight, we drift back, not into grandeur or glory, but into quiet, fragrant work to a city once perfumed with lie and laurel. If this journey brings you peace, you may tap like or subscribe only if it feels right. There's no rush. Let us begin with Aleppo, Story 1. The olive wood fires of Aleppo, you find yourself in northern Syria, sometime between the 16th and 17th centuries. The Ottoman Empire is in full bloom, its roads and rivers humming with the slow traffic of camels and barges, its cities rising in terraced domes and minarets, its kitchens warm with lentil and cumin. But here, in Aleppo, something else drifts on the air soap, not the harsh bars of modern industry, nor the sweet whipped creations of boutique stores. This is the old kind, green, solid, dry, almost sharp in scent, laurel and olive. It is soap made from time itself, cured for months, perhaps years, and at its heart is a craft passed through the hands of generations. Let us begin before the city stirs. Somewhere behind thick iron doors and sun-baked limestone walls, a man wakes. His name may be Hazen or Idris or Mahmud. Names do not matter, as much as his hands do, hands toughened by salt and heat, curved from years of stirring. He is a Sabunji, a master soap maker of Aleppo, and this, for him, is a sacred hour. He moves quietly. In this part of the city, the stone streets are narrow and steep. The buildings lean inward, sheltering each other like old friends. He steps over a sleeping cat, past a fig vendor's shuttered cart, and descends into the Homan-like warmth of the soapery. There, the fires are waiting. They are always waiting. The kettles are enormous metal vats, blackened with soot, each larger than a man. Beneath them, the olive wood fires crackle low, tended through the night by apprentices and cousins. The olive wood burns slow and hot, fragrant in its own way, and chosen carefully. Pine is too smoky. Walnut is too scarce. Olive is just right local, plentiful, sacred. Hazen rolls up his sleeves. He doesn't speak yet. That will come later. Instead, he plunges a long paddle into the mixture. It is viscous, a strange, glimmering green-brown fluid, thick as honey and twice as slippery. This is the start: rendered olive oil, water, and lye, made from wood ash. But the magic has not happened yet. The alchemy of soap needs more than ingredients. It needs time, heat, hands, and it needs laurel. Asterisk, there is an old shelf in the corner of the soapery. Upon it rest clay pots unlabeled, unremarkable. Inside them is oil from the laurel berry, sometimes called bay. This oil is the soul of Aleppo. Soap, it gives it its antiseptic quality, its strange herbal scent, its endurance. Laurel oil is not easy to extract. The berries must be harvested late in the season, boiled, then pressed and stored. It is not cheap, and so the ratios vary. A simple bar might have only 5% laurel, but for wedding gifts, for caravans to Damascus, for the Sultan's court, those may carry 20%, 30%, even more. The stronger the laurel, the more medicinal the soap, and the deeper its scent. Hazen opens a pot. The smell drifts upward, sharp, clean. He ladles the thick, green-black oil into the mixture, murmuring something in Turkish or Arabic. or perhaps just habit. Then, slowly, he stirs. He will stir for hours. Asterisk as the sun rises outside. Gold creeps across the stone walls. Apprentices arrive, sleepy-eyed and barefoot. They wear woolen sashes, and their sleeves are rolled high. Their job is to monitor temperature, to add water, to hum or pray or banter softly in the background. But Hazen's eyes do not leave the soap. The process is called saponification, a word no one here uses. In Arabic, they call it tasabon, a transformation. The oil and lye must unite, slowly, until the mixture becomes creamy and opaque. If stirred too quickly, it will bubble. If cooled too fast, it will separate. Soap is fickle, and yet it is one. Of the oldest human crafts, Babylon had soap. Egypt, too. But Aleppo perfected it, perhaps because its geography insisted on it. Here olives grow in pale, bent groves. Laurel grows wild in the hills. Water flows, just enough, through stone channels built before the Ottomans arrived. And above all, the desert lingers on the edge, always threatening dryness. Soap, then, is not luxury. It is defense. It is daily armor. By midday, the mixture thickens. It is time, asterisk, they pour the soap into shallow stone molds. Slabs the size of dining tables. The surface steams, then settles. The smell is stronger now. The scent of something bitter clean, almost like medicine, but comforting. Later, when it cools, the soap will be scored with wooden rulers, cut into neat cubes, each bar stamped with a round seal, perhaps a crescent, perhaps a calligraphic swirl. But not yet. For now, the bars must rest, cure, harden. This can take 9 months, even a year. The longer the soap rests, the better it becomes. Hazen will stack it in the dark drying chambers of the soapery, where bats sometimes sleep among the beams and dust gathers like silk. The chambers are oddly quiet, cool, even in summer, stone-lined, windowless. The bars breathe slowly, changing from green to pale beige. If you listen closely, you can almost hear them settling. Asterisk, and so ends the first part of our journey. Before sleep takes you fully, consider this: in a world that rushes to cleanse and discard, there once were people who spent years making something you could hold in your palm, not for profit, not for trend, but because soap, like bread, was sacred, and laurel never hurries. Asterisk, wonderful. Let us step softly back into the warm, stone-walled quiet of Aleppo, ... The soap stackers of Con El Saboon. The sun is higher now. Its rays stretch long fingers through the slats of wooden shutters. Outside, the streets of Aleppo begin to wake. You hear the rattle of date carts, the distant sound of hoofbeats on stone, the gentle clang of a brass door knocker echoing through a narrow passage. But inside the Con Al Saboon, the soap caravanserai, time slows again. This is not the place where soap is made. This is where it rests, cures, breathes, and waits. And here, in the stone belly of this centuries-old warehouse, the scent is unforgettable. A mix of laurel and lime dust, of cool air and quiet labor. It is as if the walls themselves are exhaling. You step through its arched doorway. It's taller than you expect, framed in soft sandstone, carved with geometric motifs. Just above, a pigeon nestles into a crack in the cornice, her feathers puffed against the noon heat inside. Your eyes adjust slowly. Everywhere, soap, not in stacks but in towers short, solid columns built from thousands of small square blocks. Some are pale green, others tawny beige. They are arranged by age. The freshest still carry the sharp tang of lye. The oldest are smooth, almost silky, with a scent like old cedar and cool spice, and moving among them quiet as shadows are the stackers. There is no single name for them in the record books, but they appear again and again in travel journals, merchant ledgers, Ottoman customs logs. Some are women, some are boys of 12, some are older men with long moustaches and shirts stained green at the cuffs. Their hands are always dusty. They do not speak much. They hum. They murmur greetings. But mostly they lift. One bar at a time, each cube of soap is rotated, turned gently, allowed to breathe, never placed flat for too long. A bar that does not air properly will crack, or sweat, or sour at the edges. And so the stackers move in slow patterns, walking between towers with wooden trays and flat baskets. There is no rush. Some days they may only tend a few hundred blocks, and that is enough. Sometimes they write on the walls in chalk, simple notes: cured 3 months, 20% laurel for export, or just the name of a family scribbled in Arabic script with a small heart beside it. Soap in this form is intimate. It is not anonymous. It carries the hands that shaped it, and so, day by day, the soap cures. The process is almost silent. There is no machinery, no clanging or stamping or steam, only air, darkness, and care. Every few weeks, traders arrive. Some come from Istanbul, others from Cairo, others from desert towns strung like beads along the old Silk Road. They bring bolts of cotton, pearls from the Gulf, pomegranates dried in sugar, and they take back crates of soap wrapped in linen, packed with straw, marked in red ink. But some buyers come not for trade. They come for scent. In the corner of the con is a room with no windows. Inside it, the master perfumer of Aleppo keeps a small collection, not perfumes as we know them, but blending blocks bars of soap infused with spices, amber, even crushed, rose petals. These are not for washing. They are for linen chests, for marriage dowries, for travelers to carry in silk pouches, so their garments never forget home. The master perfumer speaks in poetry. He says things like, clove awakens memory, amber smells like quiet, laurel tells the truth. He chooses his blends by mood, not recipe. A bar may take 2 years to perfect. It may never be sold. Not all soap, he says, is meant to be used. Outside, the sun begins its slow descent. Shadows stretch long in the corridor. The stackers retreat one by one, their feet echoing on the stone floor. You are left alone, surrounded by towers of pale, silent soap. Each one carries stories of groves and kettles, of firewood and song, of markets and marriages, of skin and ritual, of hands. And as you rest there, the scent of laurel drifts higher, into the soft rafters of the roof, and out again into the cooling air of Aleppo. Asterisk. Let us return now to the final stillness of the day, where soap, scent, and silence linger in the air like memory. Soap for the Sultan's skin night has folded itself gently across. Aleppo, the lamps are lit in the courtyards. Somewhere, a cat yawns on a pile of figs left too long in the heat. The last call to prayer fades softly through the lattice of stone and sky. And deep inside the Con al Saboon, the towers of soap stand untouched, as if listening. But far away in Topkapi Palace, In Istanbul, someone is preparing to bathe. You find yourself in the Ottoman capital. The city of domes. It is years, perhaps decades later. The empire is older, more complex. The court is vast, nauliard in silk and protocol, sharpened by letters, softened by incense. And here, the work of Aleppo reaches its final destination. In a chamber carved from polished marble, beneath golden arches and mosaic ceilings, a bath attendant prepares the royal basin. The air smells of steam and rosewater. Towels of woven Angora wool hang beside carved soapstone bowls, and on a small silver tray rests a pale cube of Aleppo soap, stamped with a crescent moon, wrapped in fine muslin, aged for over a year. The Sultan does not speak as he enters. He nods once, and the ritual begins. The soap is warmed slightly just enough to release its oils. The laurel scent blooms again, sharper now, medicinal, but softened by the steam. The attendant rolls it between his palms until it forms a thick, creamy lather. This is no quick wash. It is a ceremony part cleansing, part reverence. The Ottomans saw the body as a mirror of divine order. Cleanliness was not only health, it was discipline, beauty, balance, and soap was its most humble servant. With gentle hands, the attendant begins. He moves from wrists to elbows, from neck to chest, from heel to brow. The soap glides, rinses, clings. The skin sighs beneath it. No perfumes are added. The laurel is enough. In fact, its smell is said to repel insects, to heal scrapes, to cool fevers. And so the Sultan's skin, scrubbed smooth and rinsed clean, carries only this, a scent of green clarity not far from the palace. Other bars of Aleppo soap follow other paths. Some arrive in Velafit and sold to noble women who never imagined the olive wood fires that made them. Others travel with pilgrims, wrapped in woolen socks beside bread and lentils. Some are gifted to midwives, to scholars, to brides, and some remain in Aleppo, passed from hand to hand, from mother to daughter, from cousin to neighbor, always softening in the wash basin, always scenting the home. There are stories told in the hammam's public bathhouses, lined with marble and lit by sunbeams falling through round roof holes. Women gather here, they scrub, they braid hair. They speak of markets, marriages, dreams, and always, in the corner, a little bar of soap. The children laugh when it slips. The elders nod as they lather their ankles, and someone will always say, "Don't let the good soap fall down the drain." There is a softness to things that endure. Aleppo's soap endures through empire, plague, war, peace, exile. Through all the calamities that pass like dust storms through cities of stone, it is still made. Not everywhere, but somewhere, by hands not so different from Hazen's, by fires still fed with olive wood, by kettles still stirred at dawn. The scent too remains. Laurel, clean, sharp, gentle, like memory, like care, like something small done well, over and over, for centuries. And now, friend, the fire has burned low, the molds are cooling, the doors of the Khan have been bolted for the night, and the towers of soap sleep quietly in the dark, waiting. For hands that know how to lift them, close your eyes, and imagine a bar of soap drying slowly in a stone chamber, its scent caught in your sleeves, its story still unfolding. Let's now wander into a different time, a different place. Story 2. The rosewater rinsers of Mughal Zanana's asterisk whispers behind the Jarakosti monsoon has passed. The garden glistens. Drops of rain still cling to the mango leaves, but the wind has quieted. In the early morning, before the parrots begin their calls, the Mughal palace lies in a hush. Marble glows faintly in the pearl-colored light. And beyond the carved lattice windows' jarakas, someone is preparing for the day. You are standing at the threshold of the Zenanatha women's quarters of a Mughal court. Here, the rhythms of life move gently, yet precisely. The rustle of fine cotton saris, the faint splash of water in copper basins, the soft scrape of a pumice stone. Each act small, each act repeated daily, quietly, like prayer. But first, you were bathed in scent. The Mughal Zenana was more than a place. It was an entire world, secluded, ordered, scented. It held princesses, nurses, poets, seamstresses, astrologers, eunuchs, wet nurses, and widows, and always, everywhere served. Some were born into the palace. Others came from distant lands, exchanged, freed or indentured. They moved like flowing water through stone corridors, bringing trays of fruit, folded towels, pots of sandalwood paste. Cleanliness here was not only personal, it was spiritual, political, even medicinal. A princess began her day not with a bath, but with fumigation, a small piece of argar wood placed on glowing coals. As it smoked, she would lift her long braid and let the scent curl through it. Her silk scarves would be fanned over the smoke until they smelled faintly of the forest. This was Dukan, and it marked the start of stillness. Then came the rosewater. You follow the scent down a corridor where low voices echo from a domed chamber. A marble basin glints in the light. Beside it, copper ewers are being filled rosewater, jasmine, sometimes vetiver for those of heavier humors. This is not a hasty bath. It begins with crushed herbs rubbed gently over the skin. Neem for purification, turmeric for softness, sandalwood for coolness. The attendants move slowly, kneeling, their hands trained by repetition. They sing softly, lines from old ghazals. There is no rush. The body is treated not as shameful, but as beloved. Water is poured from a height. The sound it makes is deliberate, like rainfall on marble, not a splash, but a rhythm. One for each limb, one for each gesture. After the bath, oils are applied, not perfumed, not overpowering. Light oils, sesame in winter, coconut in summer, warmed in the palm, then massaged into the scalp, the wrists, the ankles. A woman might sit cross-legged for hours as her hair is braided, oiled, and coiled. Conversation drifts easily during this time. Little is said aloud. Most is understood. Then comes the final ritual, the scenting of the veil. A folded odni is waved briefly over a flame, then dusted with rose attar. Not too much, just enough to linger in the folds. It is draped lightly across the head and shoulders. Still warm that this veil, now infused, will carry the scent all day. There is no single queen here, no single heroine, but names emerge from records. Jahanara Begum, daughter of Shah Jahan, who wrote of perfumes as the memory of gardens. Roshanara, her sister, who kept a notebook of herbal blends. Zeba Nissa, the poet princess, who once likened rosewater to the breath of paradise pressed into cloth. These women born to courts, confined by walls, still shaped entire. Cultures of refinement. They wrote letters, managed estates, brewed tinctures, trained attendants. They did not appear on battlefields, but in the hush of morning, in the scent of their veils, in the stillness after bathing, They shaped a legacy of feminine grace. The empire still remembers. Now, as the first hour of the day slips past, the zenana quiets again. Some women nap, others pray. A few walk through the shaded colonnades, scattering rose petals into fountains just for the pleasure of watching them spin. You remain still, somewhere far off. A pigeon coos beneath the eaves, and you find yourself wondering how many mornings like this have passed, soft as silk, unrecorded and yet real. Asterisk, thank you. Let us gently return to that quiet world where scent, silence, and soft rituals shaped the rhythm of a day. Asterisk, the atta makers of Kanayu time passes without sound in the Zenana, but outside its walls, in the dry heartland of Uttar Pradesh, a caravan creaks along a dusty road. Somewhere between the Ganges and the Yamuna, smoke rises from squat chimneys, and the air is thick with the smell of firewood, earth, and roses. You have arrived in Kanahuj. The town is ancient, older than empires, older than maps. But in the 17th century, under the Mughals, it becomes something more, the perfumed engine of an empire. This is where the attas are born. Atta is not perfume in the Western sense. It is not alcohol-based. It does not come in delicate crystal bottles with atomizers. It is oil slowly distilled, intensely concentrated, and aged like fine wine. One drop clings to the wrist for days, and Kanayuj, for centuries, is the quiet capital of this craft. Here, you walk past courtyards filled with baskets of damask roses, their pink heads cut just before dawn. They must be processed the same to freshness. Is everything. Women and children gather the petals gently, avoiding bruising. They work quickly, their fingertips stained with fragrance. The petals are carried to the Degbapaka, Still's large copper cauldrons sealed with clay, water and rose. Petals are simmered for hours over dung fires. A bamboo pipe connects the cauldron to a receiver filled with sandalwood oil, which absorbs the distilled essence drop by drop. The scent is not immediate, it builds slowly, like memory, like trust. The master atta maker called Kalaftas not rely on timers or thermometers. He listens to the rhythm of the boil. He watches the color of the bubbles. He knows when a batch is done by the way steam curls in the air, or how it smells on a copper spoon. Each atta has its season, Ragulab. Rose oil is made only in spring. Kora comes with summer rain. Hina is pressed from leaves in the cold season. Meaty atta, made from baked earth, is distilled just before the monsoons to capture the scent of dry soil. These oils are then stored in leather, bottles cuppies buried in the earth for weeks or even months, to mature in the quiet coolness. Below ground, and from here they travel, carried by camel, by river, by courtly request. These attas make their way into imperial harems and royal caravans, into the turbans of noblemen, the hems of courtesans' veils, the pillows of wandering poets. One small bottle may pass through dozens of hands. A eunuch at court wraps it in silk and slips it into a chest. A princess unseals it with a gold-tipped pin and dabs it on a letter. A physician mixes a drop into a tonic for digestion. A bride applies it behind her ears on the eve of her wedding, saying nothing, just smiling. These attas are not just fragrances, they are messages. They are time, compressed. They are the smell of memory. Sometimes foreign visitors write about Kanoj. Jesuit missionaries find it overpowering. Dutch traders record shipments by the flask. English and speak of the eastern scent that clings to one's skin like prayer. But for the Caliph, none of this matters. His art is not for spectacle. It is for quiet use, for the woman lifting her braid and scenting it for dawn, for the servant wrapping a warm scarf for an old matriarch, for the unseen pause in the middle of a humid afternoon when a curtain lifts and the room smells suddenly of rose and sandalwood. This is perfume as ritual. Perfume as cared at by late evening. The distilleries go silent. Fires are banked. Clay seals are tapped loose. The earth cools and the scent lingers faintly in the dust. You stand beneath a neem tree, hands cupped, imagining the feel of a single drop of rose attar on your palm, warm, heady, impossibly ancient. It stays there, long after the sun sets, long after the voices fade, long after you walk back toward sleep. Asterisk, thank you. Let us return one final time to that serene world of scent, slow ritual and hidden grace, scented scrolls, silent archives. Time presses itself into paper. You are now in the cool interior of a Mughal library, a conker attached to a palace or mosque, where the scent of old ink mixes softly with rose-infused linen. Light falls through narrow windows. In the stillness, a scribe leans over a low desk, his reed pen pausing over a thin sheet of oncta paper made from crushed mulberry bark. The ink smells faintly of myrrh. The scribe dips again and writes slowly. It is not a poem, not a legal document, but a recipe, a remedy, a ritual, another page in the scented history of an empire. The Mughal court was not only obsessed with fragrance, it recorded it in the royal libraries and women's quarters. Across generations, meticulous notes were kept on the preparation of oils, powders, rose waters, and bombs. Some were medicinal, drawn from Unani physicians. Others were cosmetic, learned from Persian grandmothers or local dais. Many were devotional, meant to purify the body before prayer or calm the mind. Before reading the Quran in Jahanara Begum's court, attendants transcribed lists of daily rituals: when to apply rose water, how to prepare sandalwood paste during eclipses, what kind of oil suits melancholic temperaments, which scent should be used on silk veils, and which only on cotton sheets. One preserved scroll describes how to scent paper before writing. The sheet is fanned with oud smoke, then rubbed with a trace of attar, then left for 2 days before the pen touches it. The words that follow are considered more trustworthy. Scent, after all, attracts not only people but divine attention. Here, among scrolls and jars, a quiet profession blossoms. The female PUFUMER. Not all Mughal perfumers were men. In Zenonas, across the empire, women trained in the arts of distillation and scent-making passed their knowledge from hand to hand. They rarely signed their names, but their blends were known like family songs. You might not know her face, but you'd know her formula: the perfect cooling oil for monsoon fever, the attar that didn't stain silk, the rose powder that soothed a widow's grief. One manuscript, anonymous but careful, lists 23 recipes for gulab pash rose sprays. The last is labeled only for sad mornings in the cold month of Mag. As you drift between these quiet pages, a broader truth emerges. The Mughal world was not only built on war and marble, but on minutiae: the exact moment to apply a bomb, the ratio of jasmine to cardamom in a perfume pouch, the memory of a beloved, ant scent woven into linen. Long after she is gone, these small things were not insignificant. They were how meaning survived in time. Empires fell. The British banned distillation in many towns. The Xenonas emptied. Factories rose. But in Some homes even or you'll find a carved wooden box tucked away in a cupboard. Inside, dried rose petals, a tiny glass bottle, the last trace of meaty attar clinging to a scrap of silk, and still, if you hold it to your wrist, the scent stirs something old, not a fact, not even a memory, just the soft idea that someone once cared enough to make the world smell beautiful drop by drop, day by day, for no glory but the pleasure of it. Let's now wander into a different time, a different place. Asterisk, thank you. Let's gently let that last scent fade. And now, we turn to a new story, carried on the warm winds of the eastern Mediterranean. Story 3. Lathered in laurel, a day inside an Aleppan soap house, the cauldron room beneath the citadel there. First thing you notice is the heat, then the scents, clean, bitter, a mingling of laurel oil, ash, and wood smoke. You are standing inside a sabon factory in 17th century Aleppo, beneath vaulted stone ceilings, where great copper vats bubble and hiss. Steam clings to the air like gauze. It is not chaos. It is choreography, measured, repetitive, centuries old. You are in the cauldron room, the hidden heart of one of the world's oldest industries, Aleppo soap dash making ALEPPO, the gate to the east is no stranger to scents. Caravans from Persia, spices from India, citrus from the lavender meet here. But its most enduring scent is not exotic. It is elemental, olive and laurel, saponified by time and fire. This soap does not froth. It does not come perfumed or colored. It is pale green, square-cut, and uncompromisingly honest. And yet, for generations, it is one of Syria's most prized exports, favored by merchants, queens, and ordinary folk alike. To make it requires patience, humility, and heat. Work begins in the early hours. Ash from burnt barilla plants is dissolved in water to create alkali lye. This will be the soap's backbone. The lye is mixed into copper cauldrons filled with pressed olive oil bits, golden slickness catching the light. But the magic comes from a third ingredient, laurel berry oil. Rare, seasonal, and fragrant. Laurel oil is pressed only in small quantities. It lends the soap its sharp, herbal scent and its cooling, almost medicinal touch. The ratio matters. For common soap, only 2 to 5% laurel oil is used. For high-end, Bacchestos, bound for Ottoman palaces, or French, apothecarisette can rise to 40%. The mixture must be boiled slowly, constantly stirred by men with long wooden paddles. Each stir is deliberate. Each scrape of the cauldrons. Edge sings against copper. No machines, just sweat, rhythm, and trust in tradition. The head soap master is called the Sabon. He wears no special mark, just a cloth wrapped tight around his head to keep sweat from dripping into the mix. But his hands know things. He touches the surface of the boiling paste with 2 fingers, holds them to the wind, and nods. Just enough laurel, just enough heat. The apprentices learn through osmosis, no manuals. No ink, only the habits of repetition. Add ash, wait. Stir again. Check the bottom of the vat with a wooden ladle. Is the soap translucent? Wait, scoop some on. A stone and let it cool. Does it harden with a squeak? Wait again. Soap here teaches patience. When the boiling ends, the thick paste is poured across the stone floor of the drying hall. Wide, level, warm like a silent courtyard. The soap spreads into a soft sea of green, inches thick, and then it rests, for days. There are no scents added, no perfumes stirred in. This is not the French style. This is Suri so plain, functional, and proud of it. The only fragrance is what nature gave: laurel and olive, smoke and mineral. As you walk barefoot across the drying room, the soap yields softly beneath your steps. It is still warm, still living. Later, it will be cut, marked, aged in stacks. But for now, it sleeps, as do you, nearly, surrounded by the scent of clean earth, of heat and oil and patience. You let your thoughts slow, like the stirring of a paddle in copper, like the rise and fall of the fire. And just before you drift off, you wonder, how many hands stirred these cauldrons over how many lifetimes? How many cities were washed clean by this same recipe? How many quiet mornings began with this same soft scent? Asterisk, certainly. Let's return to that world of stone floors, drying soap, and time measured in scent. The cutters, the stampers, and the long cure by now. The great hall is quiet. The bubbling has ceased. The soap, poured days ago across smooth stone floors, has cooled into a thick, greenish slab, firm but pliable, like the crust of fresh bread. Outside, a muezzin's call filters in from the minaret near the Alcondac gate, joining the sounds of carts and distant chatter. But inside this vaulted chamber, only one rhythm matters: the careful work of the cutters. They move barefoot, in tunics smudged with olive oil. Their tools simple: a long, wire-bound wooden guide, and short knives shaped like paddles. They kneel, to slice the slab, measuring by instinct, not ruler, into hundreds of neat, square bars. Not too big, not too small, each one meant to cure, breathe, and last. The scent of laurel deepens with every cut. It has no sweetness, no cloying note. It is lean, herbal, and cleansing, like a quiet morning in a cool courtyard after rain. After cutting, a second crew enters. The stampers, each bar, still soft, must be pressed with the mark of its maker. Carved wooden seal dipped in water and struck once, firmly. The stamp leaves a gentle indentation, sometimes the name of the soap house, sometimes a Quranic verse or a date. One boy, not yet 10, carries the seals in a linen pouch, each wrapped, to preserve the grain of the wood. His father stamps beside him, never speaking. Just stamp, ... step. Stamp again. You watch as rows of stamped bars emerge, lined like books in a vast library of scent, and now they must wait. Soap in Aleppo is never rushed. Once stamped, the green bars are stacked carefully, with air between eating to drying. Towers that rise like ancient ziggurats in the curing rooms. These towers may hold 10,000 bars, arranged with perfect symmetry, like a city of squares. The towers will stand for 9 months, sometimes longer. Over time, the outside of each bar will fade from green to golden beige, while the inside remains pale. This is the natural oxidation that makes Aleppo soap so revered. Aged soap becomes gentler, longer lasting, and more fragrant. No fragrances are added, no packaging, no wrappers, just layers of time and silence. As the bars cure, the soap house does not sleep. Children sweep the floors, and someone climbs the roof to check for leaks before the winter rains. Tea is brewed in the corner for the workers. A cat sleeps on a burlap sack in the back hall, and always, in the corners, are the stories. A bar of soap from here once sailed to Cairo with a merchant who lost it all but that. Another gifted too. A bride in Thessaloniki still sits in her wedding trunk. One worker remembers his grandfather stirring the cauldron blindfolded, he said scent taught him more than sight ever could. Aleppo's soap houses are quiet places, not quiet like a tomb, quiet like a breath held before speaking. You sit in the curing hall, surrounded by 10,000 bars of aging soap. The scent is clean and dry, like old pages in the sun. There is no noise, just the echo of water dripping from a distant spout. And in that moment, you begin to understand. This isn't just a building, it's a timekeeper. Every cured bar is a calendar. Every scent an echo of the laurel harvest. Every mark a message to the future in something that will someday vanish. In water and foam, you close your eyes and rest. Asterisk, let's step softly once more into the scented hush of ancient Aleppo. Caravans, baths, and the quiet reach of cleanliness morning in Aleppo again. Not inside the soap house this time, but outside, where the caravans wait, their camels shift and sigh, tails twitching. Their burdens, bales of cured Aleppo soap, stacked in linen sacks, each labeled in faded script. The soap has matured for 9 months in vaulted halls. Now it begins another journey across deserts, along coasts, up rivers. You watch as handlers lift the bales one by one. No urgency. This rhythm, like the soap itself, is centuries old. Some of these bars will reach Istanbul, placed in woven baskets in palace baths, where concubines lather and rinse beneath warm marble arches. Others head west to Venice or Marseille, where apothecaries will study their texture and copy their recipe, though they never quite match the scent. Others still will go south, across the Red Sea to Egypt, even as far as East Africa, where it will be traded for indigo, incense, or salt. This humble, squared soap has a passport longer than most men. Aleppo soap is valued not just for how it cleans, but for what it signifies. Cleanliness in the Ottoman world is not aesthetic, it is spiritual, ritual, and social. In cities from Damascus to Sarajevo, the hammam is where cleanliness becomes communion. Step into one of these baths now. A domed ceiling lets sunlight in soft, dappled pools. Steam curls from shallow basins. Attendants wrap towels with practiced care. Somewhere, a copper kettle hisses gently. And in the corner, a bar of Aleppo soap, perhaps years old, melts slowly on a brass tray. Used again and again by hands unknown. It's rubbed into hair, scrubbed across shoulders, pressed into feet, rinsed and left to dry. It is not scented with rose or amber, yet it leaves its mark. The laurel lingers back in Aleppo. The soap house prepares for another cycle. The barilla plant is gathered and burned. Laurel berries, dark and oily, are pressed by hand. Copper cauldrons are inspected, their seams scrubbed. The sabin, the master, tests a scoop of ash between thumb and finger. Some things do not change. Outside, a woman buys a single bar for her daughter's dowry. Another trades eggs for soap at the souk. A teacher tells his pupils why true Aleppo soap should squeak when rubbed. And somewhere miles away, a child bathes with a sliver passed down from her mother, who once kept it wrapped in cloth, who once said, "Smell this. This is what clean should smell like." You sit now on the warm stone step of the soap house. Behind you, curing towers, quiet workers, and years of scent baked into the very walls. Before you, the buzz of Aleppo, a city, layered with voices, spices, footsteps, and the long journey of clean. The bar in your hand feels light. You rub it once between your palms. A whisper of lather, and you wonder what other small things will outlast empires. What trades will survive when ink fades and marble crumbles? What will be remembered by scent alone? The answer, perhaps, is curing somewhere in the dark even now. Let's now wander into a different time, a different place. Story 4. Ambergris and Incense. When Yemeni perfumers bottled the monsoon asterisk, the rain-slicked docks of Ardenite begins with the scent of rain on wood. You're standing on the wind-drenched docks of Arden, sometime in the early 18th century. The air is thick with monsoon damp. Canvas sails flutter, ropes creak, and the sea breathes against the breakwater in slow, measured waves. A dhow has just arrived, its hull slick, its crew lean and sun-darkened. It carries myrrh from Dhofar, cardamom from the Malabar coast, and, most precious of all, a parcel wrapped in sharkskin and sealed with wax. The scent seeps through the wrapping even before it's opened. Ambergris, whale spit, gold. Born of the ocean and aged by salt, sun, and time. You follow the parcel to its next destination, a dim, narrow stall in Odin's ancient Souk Alatan, the perfumer's market. The souk is quiet in the morning. Brass trays are being polished. Thin hands arrange lumps of benzoin resin like sugar cubes. Strings of dried rose petals sway gently above your head. Beneath your feet, the stone is worn smooth by generations of scent makers. And here, behind a wooden counter inlaid with mother-roof pearl, sits Muhammad ibn Rawah, one of the city's most respected atta perfumers. He's in no rush. With a small curved knife, he slices open the ambergris bundle, the scent that spills out as unlike anything you've known. Warm, animal, woody, oceanic. Not sweet, not harsh, just haunting. He smiles without looking up and says, "This one was born at sea." Aden is not the richest port in Arabia, not anymore. But it is where scent becomes memory, and memory becomes wealth. For centuries, Yemeni perfumers have blended the intangible: fire, salt, leaf, smoke, sweat. Their ingredients come from mountains, deserts, and oceans. Their tools are simple: bronze mortar, wax-sealed flasks, heat from a charcoal ember. Yet what they create can outlast cities. You sit now in Mogammad's workroom. It smells of burned oud, sun-dried limes, sandalwood oil, and paper. Along one wall are jars filled with strange contents: powdered civet musk, green frankincense, jasmine wax, orris root. Each morning, he begins not with mixing, but with listening. Listening to the weather, the mood of the city, the way the monsoon wind moves through the shutters. Because scent, he says, is not formula, it's intuition. Today's mixture will begin with ambergris, a few waxy crumbs melted gently in warm sesame oil. Then a single thread of clove smoke wafted beneath a bell jar. A tear of labdanum, dark and sticky, folded in with a spatula made from horn. And finally time, the oil must rest. For days, weeks, even. Because the best perfumes, like the best stories, are slow. You lean back, eyes half closed, surrounded by ingredients from a dozen lands, all resting together in one little shop by the sea. And as the oil cools and the scent deepens, you wonder how many winds carried this fragrance to you. How many hands tended its parts before they touched your skin? What else has lasted so long? By scent alone. Asterisk, let's return to the quiet shop, where scent speaks louder than words. Asterisk, distillations in clay, recipes in smoke. The sun leans westward now, casting long fingers through the lattice windows. Inside Mugammad's workshop, the air is still and warm-rich with the scent of steeped resin, charred herbs, and old wood soaked in centuries of oil. You're no longer a visitor. You've become part of the stillness, part of the patience. The clay alembic simple, bulbous distillation vessels passed down from Ottoman apothecaries sit like sleeping birds on low flames. One gurgles faintly as rose petals and water yield to steam, then condense into a thin trickle of attar, the pure essence. This process takes hours. You're told not to speak. Too much noise, Mugammad insists, interrupts the balance. A perfume ruined by a raised voice will not recover. Instead, you listen to the soft hiss of boiling water, the tap of a pestle against marble, the tiny clink of a brass lid sealing a bottle, and to the whisper of stories being distilled alongside the scent. There are no written recipes here. Each blend exists in memory shared orally, passed through fingers that know by feel when a resin is ready, when an oil has matured. One of Mugammad's apprentices, a girl of 12 named Psalm, lifts a spoonful of dark brown labdanum and rolls it between her palms. Her mother taught her that if the sticky resin leaves no trail on her fingertips, it's ready to fold into musk oil. Beside her, an elderly man fans a tray of burning myrrh, catching its smoke beneath an inverted clay funnel to flavor the next batch of incense beads. The tools are old, but the knowledge is older. There's a quiet reverence in everything, even the bottle shelves lined with long-necked flasks and squat earthen pots are organized not by ingredient, but by season, emotion, and memory. This one, Mugammad says, lifting a pale green vial, smells like the first morning of fasting. He opens another. This is for grieving widows. It comforts without clinging. And another still, made from crushed vetiver roots and dried fig leaf, with a hint of salt from the seawall. For the letter you never sent. Each scent is a moment you didn't realize you'd lived. As the moon rises over Aden, the distillations are sealed and stored. You sip tea brewed with sage and mint, while Psalm folds parchment labels with careful hands. The room glows in amber light. The day has passed without hurry, yet so much has changed. Something in you feels quieter, clearer, as though a window has been opened that can't be shut in the courtyard. A breeze arrives at last, carrying monsoon rain from across the gulf. The first drops tap the roof gently, as if asking permission, and you realize even the rain smells different now. Asterisk, let's return once more to the perfumed hush of old Aden. Asterisk, caravans of scent and the forgotten geography of smell by morning. The rain has passed. The streets of Aden glisten, their gutters humming softly with runoff. The scent of wet stone, soaked cardamom skins, and a faint trail of clove smoke hangs over the suq. Mugammad's shop opens without fanfare. The shutters creak. The incense is lit. Another day begins. But today is different. Today, a merchant from Hadramaut arrives, his robe dusted with travel, his palms calloused from long weeks guiding camels across coastal wadis. He carries a chest carved with coral inlay, fastened with 3 copper locks. Inside, protected by salt-packed flax, are tiny vials of spikenard, bundles of dried rue, a few chips of Himalayan costus root, and tucked beneath a velvet pouch an envelope sealed in red wax. It is addressed not to Mugammad, but to his father, long past. He does not open it. Instead, he places it gently on a high shelf among bottles labeled not with names, but with poems. Later, as the shop settles, you're shown the oldest corner of the room. There, wrapped in linen and fig bark, lies the ledger of scents. It is not written in any modern language, nor in perfect script. It is filled with fragment scent notes beside forgotten towns, recipes in faded dialects, markings in charcoal and crushed flower petal. You learn something that stays with you. Perfume is a geography of memory. Each note amber, frankincense, cedar, lime once traced the trade winds, curled through keyholes, lingered in temples, soaked into love letters, clung to funeral shawls. These bottles are not just blends. They are maps, not maps of land, but of feeling, faith, and time. You are invited, finally, to choose your scent. Not the one that smells the best, not the one most expensive, but the one that feels like something you forgot you once knew. You pick up a simple vial clusterpod, wax-sealed, inside a golden oil that smells of sea wind, burned myrrh, and the soft shadow of laurel. It reminds you of a dream, though you're not sure which one. Muhammad nods. That one was made the year the rains came late. Outside, the caravans begin to load. Sacks of incense, bundles of oil flasks wrapped in wool, balls of ambergris resin tucked among date cakes for cushioning. They will head inland through Sana, up to the markets of the Hejaz, maybe even further, to Syria or Cairo. Some bottles will be purchased, others traded, some lost, some buried with the dead. A few will be passed, hand to hand, until they are opened in places far from rain and saltware. Someone will unstopper them and say, this smells like something I knew before. You take one last breath of the shop, the stillness, the trace of old wood and oil, and you wonder, when did we begin forgetting the language of scent? What will survive longer monuments, or memory carried by a breeze? And in some distant time, when all this is dust, will someone still smell the monsoon? Asterisk let slip now from the spice-warmed wind of old Aden to the cooler chambers of another scented world, deep within the bathhouses of an empire. Story 5. In the steam of the Sultan's baths, soap makers of Aleppo and the quiet asterisk, the olive press and the long boil asterisk. The morning begins not with sunlight, but with smoke and soap. You awaken not in a bedroom, but in a stone courtyard in the ancient city of Aleppo, sometime in the late 17th century. The air is thick with the scent of burned olive pits fuel for the great cauldrons that bubble behind you. A cool mist clings to the floor tiles. Somewhere, a metal bucket clanks, pigeons coo. Softly on the rooftop, you are standing in a soap house, not a modern factory, not a perfumed boutique, but a cavernous, multi-leveled workshop where men in aprons and dust-stained robes begin their day's labor the same way their grandfathers did. Slowly, patiently, precisely, you follow the steps backward. Before there was soap, there was olive. Oil, the green gold kind, pressed in the villages around Idlib and Afrin, brought down in sloshing goatskin bags. Stored in massive ceramic amphorae, the oil is judged not by taste, but by thickness, clarity, and how it settles under the fingernail. To this, the soap makers add 2 other gifts of the Levant: laurel berry oil, pungent and slightly medicinal, pressed only in autumn, and alkaline soda ash, gathered from evaporated lake beds east of the Euphratesine, a sun-dappled courtyard. These 3 humble ingredients await their union. The cauldron room is half dark, its walls blackened from centuries. A fire dot at the center sits a vast vat wide enough for 2 men to stand in. Beneath it, a smoldering pit of burned olive pits and vinewood crackles steadily. The mixture is poured in stages. First olive oil, then ash water, then laurel oil. A long wooden or stirs the blend over and over, hour after hour, for 7 days. The mixture will bubble and thicken. For 7 nights, someone must watch it lest it curdle or split. There are no thermometers, no digital timers, only eyes, hands, intuition. You sit beside the elder soap maker, Albert al-Hakim, as he watches the cauldron. His face is lined like a weather map. His robe smells faintly of laurel and steam. He says nothing for a long while. Then, pointing to the thickening surface, he murmurs, "It's almost ready to sleep." By this, he means the soap is approaching saponification, the point at which oil and alkali marry into something new, something soft, clean, and enduring. They call it Sabangar, Aleppo's gift to the world. When the mixture is ready, it will be poured onto stone floors, spread like a thick golden paste, and left to set. But for now, the boil continues, and you sit beside it, watching the steam curl upward in lazy swirls like incense in a forgotten temple, wondering what other crafts the world has forgotten to wait for. Asterisk, let's return to the slow warmth of the soap house, where the past still lingers in laurel and lime. Asterisk, carving, curing, and stacking the scent of the lavender bubbling has stopped. What was once a vat of hot, slick oil has settled into something denser, cooling into thick sheets upon the stone curing floor. The smell in the air is richer now. Deep olive, sharp laurel, and a mild alkaline temps that clings to the nostrils. This is where the soap begins to take shape. You're handed a long wooden rake not for sweeping, but for spreading. The mixture, like soft fudge, must be drawn level across the floor. Not too thick, not too thin. The men working here step lightly, sometimes barefoot, gliding across the warm soap as if on soft earth. Once it's smooth, the waiting begins. For 3 days, nothing is done. The surface darkens slightly, like dough left under a towel, and then, with morning light angling through a narrow slit in the roof, the carvers arrive. They carry strings of taut twines stretched between wooden handles. No knives, just string. They work silently. One man walks the length of the floor, dragging the twine through the soap in straight, measured lines. Another follows, cutting across at right angles. Before your eyes, the massive slab becomes a grid, hundreds, thousands of neat cubes, each no larger than a folded palm. These cubes are not removed. Not yet. They are left where they are, slightly lifted with wooden paddles so air can pass beneath them. Over the coming weeks, they'll harden from soft amber to warm ochre. They'll shrink slightly, they'll firm. Their edges will whiten with soda salts. But even then, they are not ready. Next comes the stacking chamber. It is a cool, shaded room with high ceilings and thick stone walls. Inside, the soap blocks are stacked in spiraling towers, like beehives, or minarets made of pale green stone. The stacks breathe. They rest. They age. Some for 6 months, some for a year, some, rare and prized, for 2 full winters, absorbing dry desert air, deepening in scent, becoming milder, more refined. No perfumes are added. No dyes. Just time. Every so often, the soap maker walks among them, tapping a bar here or there, checking its dryness by ear like a musician tuning an instrument few still know how to play. You sit again with Al-Bed al-Hakim as he trims one of the older bars by hand. "Do you know," he says quietly, "why this soap is prized in Istanbul?" You shake your head. He lifts the bar to your nose. It smells faintly of leafy olive, a breath of laurel, and something else age. Perhaps dignity, because it reminds them of the hammam, he says. Not the water, not the tile, the silence. He's right. There is a quiet to this soap, a slowness, a patience that is lost in perfumed bottles and factory machines. And as he places the bar back in its spiral stack, you understand this is not cleanliness as sparkle. This is cleanliness as memory. Asterisk, let's drift back once more past. Laurel-scented towers and tiled archways into the humid hush where cleansing was more than ritual. It was remembrance. Asterisk bathhouse attendants, lint towels, and the language of Laverium left the soap house behind now. The sun hangs low over the domes of Aleppo's hammam's public bathhouses that have served this city for centuries. From the outside, they appear modest. Small windows, smoke curling from roof vents, wooden sandals lined up at the threshold. But inside is a different world. You step into warmth, into stone steam, lantern haze, and the soft patter of water over marble. The attendants greet you not with speech, but with gesture, an open palm, a shallow bow. They take your wrap and offer slippers. You pass through 3 rooms, the cold, the warm, and finally the hot, where steam beads on your eyelashes and quiet becomes a physical thing. You sit, you breathe, you listen. There is no rush, no music, just the trickle of ladles, the hiss of steam on tile, the slow exhale of someone near you drifting off into silence. Then comes the soap. It's not poured, not rubbed, but whipped into foam using Aleppo cubes and a coarse woven bag. The attendant works the lather into peaks with a bowl and a splash of warm water. And when they begin to wash you, it's not with pressure or speed, it's a rhythm, a ritual. Long, slow passes over the arms, shoulders, back. The scent of laurel rises green, clean, ancient. The rough cloth scrubs away not just dirt, but days. You feel layers lift, dust, fatigue, forgetting. A gentle slap of a wet cloth, the warmth of rinsing. Then silence again. In the cooling room, you're wrapped. In soft, dry cotton, a dish of dried apricots and salted almonds is offered. Mint water is poured into a small brass cup. Your skin tingles not from chill, but from absence. The sudden realization that all that weight you carried in had somehow vanished. A man beside you is having his beard oiled with rosewater and sesame. A woman nearby braids her damp hair with orange flower pomade. A child sleeps on a bench, wrapped in towels, cheeks pink with warmth. This is not just bathing. This is return to stillness, to self, to the body as something cared for, not judged. Before you leave, the bathhouse master hands you a small cloth bundle. Inside is a single bar of Aleppo soap paged, choked down, stamped with the mark of its maker. It smells of olive, and laurel and quiet dignity. You take it with both hands. Later, years from now, long after you've left Syria, you may find that bar again in the back of a drawer. You'll open it, the scent will rise, and for a moment, the hammam will return the steam, the silence, the slow rediscovery of skin and soul. And in that moment, perhaps you'll ask, when did we stop giving time to our simplest acts? When did we forget how even cleaning could be sacred? Asterisk, let's now drift from the scented corridors of the hammam to a wind-blown village by the sea, where sand, sweat, and salt met another kind of soap. Story 6. Parmash and Seawater, the forgotten soap women of Swahili shores. Asterisk, the sea is near. You can't see it yet, but you hear its low and rhythmic like breath, lapping against coral rock. The air carries its dampness inland, curling through the alleys of a Swahili coastal town, perhaps Lamu, perhaps Kilwa, maybe one of those many isles with no names on maps, only in stories. It is early morning in the 18th century. You are not in a palace, nor a fort. You are in a courtyard of women, shaded by woven mats stretched between lime-washed walls, a fire smouldering in a shallow clay pit. The scent in the air is unusual: burned coconut husk, brine, and something sharp-wood ash from the palm fronds. You are here to watch them make sabuni ya pwani, the soap of the Swahili coast. It is not perfumed. It is not wrapped. It will never sit on a silk-draped shelf, but it will clean babies, linens, sailors, and floors. And it begins with ash. The process is deeply local, deeply learned. The women begin by burning palm, debris, not just any wood, but dried coconut shells, date fronds, and sometimes crushed coral to create a fine alkaline ash. This will be there, though they do not call it that. They call it majivu ash. Water, meanwhile, another pot begins to warm over the fire. Inside is a mix of coconut oil, pressed by hand from grated meat, and baobab seed oil a bit. Rarer, reserved for better batches. The oil begins to shimmer. It crackles faintly. The two liquids, ash water and coastal oil, must be joined slowly. One of the older women stirs with a polished stick. Her wrists are adorned with cowrie shell. Bangles. Her movement is unhurried, hypnotic, like stirring a pot of stories. You ask how she knows when it's ready. She smiles and says, when it stops speaking. She means the bubbles. When the mixture quiets, thickens, when the oil no longer resists. The ash, that is when the soap is born. Children play nearby, chasing chickens. A boy tries to poke the boiling pot with a stick and is gently swatted away. The women work and hum, not songs exactly, more like low chants that loop and rise, calming the toddlers, steadying the rhythm of arms. The melody blends with the sea, breeze, and the fire crackle until the air itself feels like a lullaby. After about an hour, the mixture changes. It becomes a paste the color of wet sand, thick and sticky. It's poured into shallow gourd molds, lined with palm leaf, not for shape, but for story. Each leaf imprint is unique, and so each bar carries the memory of that day's wind and sun. Then they wait. The bars will harden under a straw cover. For 3 days, no towers, no stamps, just air, salt, and shade. But already the women begin their next fire. Soap, like sea wind, never stops returning. Asterisk, let's stay a little longer on these shores, where salt clings to the skin and the slow rhythm of soap making echoes across generations of tide and toil. Asterisk, market mornings, coral dust, and the softness beneath calloused hands. The sun is higher now. Its rays slip through the latticed coral walls of a stone house in Lamu, brushing against woven mats, brass kettles, and the curled corners of a black coiffier cap left by someone who rose early. From a shaded veranda, you hear them before you see them, the steady chatter of women at the market, voices rising and falling like waves. You're here for soap, but not to buy it. You're following it. In a large flat basket, bars of coastal sabuni are laid out in neat rows. Each one is slightly uneven. Some are pale as driftwood, others dark as tamarind bark. The vendor arranges them by scent, or rather, by ingredient memory, coconut rich, ash heavy, lime scrubbed, clove dash, rinsed. A breeze carries hints of all four, and then she begins her day. The Swahili market is not loud. It is lyrical. Each stall is a vignette. Dried fish curled like commas, woven, fans shaped like mango leaves, strings of garlic bulbs white as ivory, smoked octopus inked black. Between them, the soap women drift in and out, chatting softly with spice traders, bartering with fishermen's wives, giving away slivers of soap in exchange for gossip. One woman places a bar beside a folded kanga cloth. Another tucks one under. A basket of millet flour. Sabuni is not a commodity. Here it is currency, gift, medicine, and gesture. Some women add crushed coral powder to their soapsa, gentle exfoliant and talisman in one. Others blend in frankincense water during the cooling, especially before weddings. There are even small, dark brown bars reserved for post-childbirth cleansing, laced with powdered bark and secret herbs. You notice how these soaps are not named. They are known only by their use. You are invited into a small home, tucked between two whitewashed walls. Inside, a grandmother washes her granddaughter's feet with soap and rainwater. Her hands are worn but graceful, cupping the girl's heels, rinsing gently between toes. This soap, she says, is for softness, not smell, not shine. The girl laughs at the tickle. The water drips into the sand. In another courtyard, a young bride is being bathed by her sisters. They work slowly, rubbing her arms and back with scentless sabuni, then dusting her skin with ground sandalwood. This, they say, will prepare her for her husband, not to impress, but to comfort. You begin to understand. Here, soap is not about removing dirt. It is about restoring dignity. Every wash is a return, a smoothing down, a song without sound. Later, as you rest beneath a woven shade, an old man passes carrying a wooden box filled with tiny bars. He offers you one. You're not from here, he says. Take this. It doesn't foam, but it remembers. You smell it, ash and sea and something deeply human. You ask what it's made of. He shrugs. Depends who made it. Then he smiles. But it works on sorrow. Asterisk, let's return once more to the edge of the sea, where time moves like tidewater and where the humble act of cleansing becomes a ritual passed from wrinkled hands to curious hearts. Asterisk, rainwater jars, shell basins, and the last bar on the shelf. By now, you know the rhythm. The soft hiss of oil meeting ash. The hush of sea wind combing through thatched rafters. The thump of bare heels on worn coral steps. But this time, you're not in a courtyard. You're in a storeroom, small and cool, tucked behind a house that once belonged to a soap matriarcha woman whose name is half remembered, murmured now in fragments by her granddaughters. The room smells faintly of koya, rope, old coconut, and sun-dried lime dot along the back wall. On simple plank shelves lie the last bars, not for sale, not for use. They've hardened with time, yellowing slightly at the edges. Some still bear the faint imprint of palm frond veins, others wrapped in fragments of bark cloth or folded banana leaf. Each one holds a memory, a season, a visitor, a ritual, no. Longer practiced, you are told. These are for looking, not lathering. So you look and you learn. One bar is labeled with charcoal script, Buriani, 1892. Farewell, it was made for a family departing inland, away from the coast. The ash in it is not palm, but mangrove, and the oil pressed from roasted coconut darker. It was meant to last the long journey, to clean clothes in rivers, to scent a stranger's pillow with something familiar. Another bar is twisted with clove bark, made during a year when the monsoon failed. No fresh mint, no baobab oil, just what was left in jars. But it still cured skin sores, and it still foamed, just enough. One is blackened, hardened like stone. A woman whispers, that one was for mourning, not the body, the heart. You leave. It untouched in a separate corner, you find the tools. A long-handled stirring stick, polished by hundreds of hours of movement. A conical sieve made of woven reed for straining ash water. A shell basin, not decorative, but stained deep from decades of lye. And next to it, a copper kettle battered, dented, but with a spout that still pours true. The women say, we no longer use these, but we never throw them. Soap, here, is ancestral, as intimate as lullabies, as practical as firewood. You ask if the craft is fading. They say, some forget. Some remember again when babies come, or when hands ache, or when they miss their mothers. As you leave, a small girl dips a wooden cup into a rainwater jar and washes her face with a sliver of soap her grandmother gave her. She hums as she does it. Not a song with words, but something older, a sound of habit, of comfort, of home. The bar is barely more than a nub, worn smooth as glass, and yet it foams, softly, slowly. Just enough. You step outside. The tide is out. Now, the reef glistens under the late sun. In the distance, sails move like brushstrokes across the horizon, and as you walk, the question lingers: how many hands have lathered the salt away? How many tides must pass before a ritual is remembered? Again, asterisk, let's now wander into a different time, a different place. Story 7. Jars of musk and copper. The palace attars of Safavid Persia, asterisk, a garden behind walls. And the distillers who walked like ghosts, the first scent reaches you before the first sound. It is not strong, just a thread of rosewater and sandalwood, faint as silk fluttering on a breeze. Then comes another, cinnamon, followed by frankincense, warm and resinous, like the memory of a fire long extinguished. You are not in a shop. You are in Isfahan, sometime during the 17th century, under the reign of Shah Abbas I, and you are standing at the threshold of a royal atta gardener, secret courtyard enclosed, within the deeper walls of the Chellah Palace. Inside, the air is heavy with vapors and bloom, a greenhouse built not for growing flowers, but for catching their ghosts. You step beneath an archway of turquoise tile, and the world becomes quiet. Men in linen robes move silently along the shaded corridors. Their steps are soft, their presence almost spectral. These are not servants, nor merchants, nor priests. These are the atta distillers, trained from youth, bound to secrecy, and employed by the palace to produce perfumes, ointments, and cleansing. Oils not for sale, but for ritual and rule. They are not allowed to speak of their recipes, and yet you are allowed to watch in a side chamber, light filters through colored glass. On a stone table lie rose petals, not crushed, but carefully bruised, just enough to release their oil. The petals come from Kashan, gathered at dawn, carried in velvet sacks, and kept cool with damp cotton during the journey. Nearby, copper alembics large, curved vessels sit over soft fires. Within them, a strange alchemy begins. Water boils, steam rises, oil lifts. Then it all cools through long coils, condensing back into fragrant water. Hydrosols, they're called now. But here, they're simply Gol, RB, flower water. Every drop is measured, every moment watched. This is not a craft, this is devotion. You move deeper. There is a room where ambergris rests, wrapped in linen, faintly sweet, almost animal. Another where musk pods, dried and aged, are kept in small wooden drawers. The air is thick but not unpleasant. It smells like memory, like breath, like the moment between prayers. A young apprentice scrapes powder from a sandalwood log, grinding it against a black stone with rose water until it becomes a pale, fragrant paste. This will be used not for perfume, but to scent library scrolls, so that learning itself may carry a fragrance. Nothing here is wasted. Nothing here is ordinary. And then comes the bathing, 3 times a week. At prescribed hours, members of the royal court are brought to the private hammam, not the grand public one, but this small, silent wing for cleansing before ceremony. Here, attendants mix warm gasol clay with orange blossom water and oils of quince seed. The skin is gently rubbed, then rinsed with buckets of infused rainwater, left overnight in copper vessels laced with saffron threads. After, the body is dried with muslin cloth, dusted with powdered orris root, and dabbed behind the ears with jasmine oil stored in crystal vials. No one speaks during this. Cleanliness in this chamber is not hygiene. It is a soft ritual for a world ruled by pattern and grace. Later, in the fading afternoon, the distillers collect the cooled waters and seal them in clay jars, labeled only with calligraphic symbols. These will be stored underground, kept cool, just against theft, but against forgetting, because here, in this palace behind roses and flame, soap was perfume, and perfume was order, and order was the scent of empire. Asterisk powdered marble floors, and the cleansing before ceremony evening falls. Slowly over Isfahan, the golden light grows dim, stretching across tiled domes and cedar lattice. You hear the distant murmur of fountains and the rhythmic sweeping of a reed broom across powdered marble floors. The scent that drifts now is different, less floral, more austere, a mix of camphor, myrtle, and sweet fennel seed. This is the hour before court and within the palace. Preparations have begun, not of documents or weaponry, but of skin, breath, and scent. You follow a quiet corridor, past a low arch where shadows gather. Here is the Kayseri Dastui, the ceremonial hammam set aside for the Shah's private court. No grand mosaic work, no public display, just smooth plaster walls, flickering candle niches, and warmth that clings to the bones. The ceiling is rounded, with small glass stars letting in points of dim light. Attendants move like dancers. You hear no orders, only the gentle splash of water being drawn from brass basins, warmed with embers, mixed with herbs. The cleansing begins with salted lime, rubbed lightly into the hands and feet to purify touch and steps. Then mastic gum, ground to a powder and combined with saffron water, is applied to the chest and neck knot, just to cleanse, but to open breath. Scent here is not decoration, it is function. Every oil, every rinse, serves a purpose. You are shown the Kitab-i, hand-bound ledger kept by the master of scent. Its pages are thin as onion skin, written in a delicate Nasta LQ script. Inside are hundreds of formulations. To calm anger, oil of cucumber, seed, basil infusion, and lemon rind for alertness before negotiation, cedar, frankincense, and coriander oil for restful sleep, myrtle flower, rosata, and lavender steeped. In barley water, these aren't merely cosmetic. The attas are believed to balance the humors, to regulate the unseen flow between liver, heart, and spirit. They are prescribed like medicine, only gentler, more forgiving. In the next room, powdered pumice is mixed with honey to scrub the hands of scribes. The fingers of judges are dipped in coriander tincture, believed to bring clarity before passing judgment. Even the ink used for court decrees is sometimes scented with myrrh resin, both to preserve the parchment and to mark the seriousness of the decree. And when the Shah himself bathes, the water is blessed silently with thyme and silver coin, then cooled to the exact degree, not too hot, lest it scatter the spirit, nor too cold, lest it unsettle the will. Afterward, his robe is dusted with a cinnamon clove starch, pressed with warm stones wrapped in silk, and stored for an hour beside freshly dried rose petals. No word is spoken through it all. Cleanliness is an act of reverence outside. The moon rises behind thin clouds. The city beyond the walls begins to quiet its merchants' shuddering stalls, its gardens drawn into stillness. But within the palace, the night blooms in silence, and the last scent you notice is a soft wisp of juniper smoke, curling upward into the dark dot as it fades. You wonder how many fragrances passed through this, caught unspoken, but never unnoticed. How much power once clung to the unseen. Asterisk sent as diplomacy, memory, and the soft politics of cleanliness. The sun rises again, casting a silver wash over the domes of Isfahan. But this morning, something is different. You are led not to the inner chambers, but toward the hall of 40 columns, where courtiers begin arranging silken cushions and rolling out carpets stitched with pomegranate and peacock motifs. A diplomatic envoy is due to arrive perhaps from the Mughal court or the Ottoman borderlands, and the air must be perfect, but not just clean, it must tell a story. The palaces. Master of scent moves through the chambers like a man tending to a sacred instrument. He adjusts incense bowls placed near each arch. One holds burnt agar wood, another a mix of spikenard and fig bark. These are not random. Each note must complement the rank and temperament of the visitor. Soft cotton, sachets filled with orris. Root and almond shell are hidden beneath the cushions. Curtains are misted lightly with clove-steeped rosewater, while the hallway lanterns are trimmed with saffron oil, so they will release their scent gently as they warm. Nothing here is loud. Nothing overwhelms. This is diplomacy by air. When the guest arrives, he is greeted with a perfumed towel, warmed over steam and infused with lime leaf and cardamom. This gesture is older than any formal greeting, older even than writing a quiet offering that says, "You are welcome, and we will not let discomfort cloud our talk." No guards shout, no fanfare plays, but the message is clear. You are in a place where order smells sweet, where grace is measured in oils and ashdot later. Over cups of saffron sherbet, gifts are exchanged. Among them, a carved ivory box containing 7 miniature vials of concentrated attar. Each represents a season, a temperament, a star. Inside are liquids so potent they're measured in drops, not spoonfuls, and meant to be worn behind the ears or placed upon parchment. You watch as the envoy's fingers hover over the final viola dark amber blend of labdanum, bergamot, and oud. He does not open it yet. He understands that some things must be waited for. That night, you walk the outer corridors. A faint, mingled perfume still lingers on the stones, the ghost of coriander, the breath of cinnamon. A young apprentice extinguishes the last of the oil lamps, moving barefoot with a towel in hand to wipe the brass gently clean. Not hurried, not careless, He dips the cloth into lavender water, then folds it 3 times with slow precision. Even this is part of the ritual. And then, finally, as the night settles across the rooftops of Isfahan, you realize this was not merely hygiene. This was governance. This was memory made visible only to the nose. Each fragrance, each cleansing, each silence between one rinse and the next, these were tools of an empire that ruled not only through swords or treaties, but through a persistent, invisible discipline, too. Remind every diplomat, every artisan, every scribe that to walk into Safavid Persia was to step into a world made intentional, where order lived in scent, and scent itself was a language no one dared forget.